Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Indians PRS sessions. Today we have with us Dr. Harish Angotu, who is Associate Professor of Psychiatry in Psychiatric Rehabilitation Services, NIMHANS. Last month, he had taken a class on assessment of disability certification. As introduced in the last session also, he has extensive experience both in research and services in rehabilitation. His area of interests are disability certification and welfare benefits. So, and hence he is the best person to take today's session. We welcome you, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Chetan. A warm welcome for all of you. So today, in continuation of the previous session about disability assessment, once somebody gets a disability certificate, in what way that would help the person who has the disability certificate? I think all trainees should have a fair understanding, because most of the times the first contact of patient, especially in a tertiary care teaching institute, would be the trainees. So having a fair and accurate information in this regard can help to provide information to these persons with disabilities, which can improve their quality of life significantly. So I'll just would like to give a overview of the social welfare benefits for persons with disabilities. I may also not be aware of a few of these things, so I would welcome if you have any other disability benefits which I have not included in this presentation, because the disability welfare comes under the state government sector. So you can notice during my presentation also that different states will have different thresholds and different schemes to uplift the persons with a disability and to include them in the society. So I will the overview of the presentation would be like, I would just touch upon the important acts and policies, few definitions which you should be must aware, provisions for some government employees, because you may also meet people who have mental illness related disability, or who themselves might be the government employees, or they may be the dependents on the government employees. And what are the special provisions, irrespective of whether someone belongs to a government employment or not. Special provisions if somebody is below the poverty line, a focus on children with disabilities, and some family caregivers, persons with disabilities, in what way the current policies or legislations offer some support to them also. I will briefly touch that. So as I will not go into the much of these details, but I think most of you might have heard, and in the last session we have briefly discussed about these few acts, which is that National Trust Act 1999, and the currently in implementation it is Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act 2016. So following this, rules and disability assessment guidelines were issued, which I had discussed in the last session. So few things, again, just a kind of refresh to your memory, that a person with disability is anyone who can have long-term physical, mental, intellectual or sensory impairment, which in interaction with the barriers hinders his full and effective participation equally with others. So in such a, if you take this definition, and almost like all persons are disabled at some point of time, because we are not talking about the percentage of disability. Even fever can cause this kind of disability, even some kind of any other ailment can cause this disability. So more or less we are all disabled. Now then comes the two important definitions in this regard. Is one is that person with benchmark disability, where the person should have not less than 40% of a specified disability as certified by the certifying authority. Now one more thing that is, as defined in the section 2 of RPWD Act, that there is a term called high support, which means an intensive support physical, psychological, and otherwise, which may be required by a person with benchmark disability for daily activities, to take independent and informed decision, to access facilities, and participating in all areas of life, including education, employment, family, and community life, and also treatment and therapy. So, a person, whether he would be eligible for high support or not, would be dependent on whether the person already has a benchmark disability or not. So, a person who does not have a benchmark disability cannot claim for the high support. Somebody who has already a benchmark disability evaluation or certificate can only apply for this high support, which I will give you some overview in the later slides. One more thing that also you should be aware when you try to help in rehabilitation, recovery, or in you want to empower the individual with disability towards inclusion, is important definition that has been provided in the new act is reasonable accommodation. So a necessary and appropriate modification and adjustments without imposing a disproportionate or undue burden in a particular case, to ensure to persons with disabilities the enjoyment or exercise of rights equally with others. So within the limitations of that employer, modifications and adjustments should be made to the environment, so that the person can participate with to his best ability. So how does this matters to us? I think for people who have, say, hearing impairment, I think audible signals will be there, and for people with blindness, for example, there will be braille text or some kind of palpable wall scriptures might be useful. Whereas for persons with mental illness, if somebody is on a medication, the kind of time that they would get up sometimes can be little late because of the medication induced side effect of sleep. So allowing the employee to come little late compared with others, and allowing the employee to stay a little more time in the evening to work, or exempting them from the night shifts, that also is nothing but a reasonable accommodation. So if a person with intellectual disability can be given some kind of manual or semi-skilled work in the firm, is also a reasonable accommodation. And for persons with mental illness, somebody who might be in a need of taking more frequent leaves because of whether it is appointments related to health, or whether it is exacerbations of illness, employer can be little more open to provide this kind of reasonable accommodation. So just to give you an example, so we have someone, software engineer working in a big software company, and he was given night shift. However, he was on clozapine. So we have given a letter to the employer saying that please consider the limitations of this person and exempt him from the night shifts. So the employer was has accepted this and has shifted him to a different work schedule. So that is now, it is granted by the law itself. So why this reasonable accommodation also important, to just give you a little more information later. Appropriate government shall take necessary steps to ensure reasonable accommodation for persons with disabilities. And what matters to us is persons with mental disability, whether it's autism or intellectual disability or mental illness. Just a second. So as I said, now what is discrimination? So discrimination also has been defined in this law as that any distinction, exclusion, restriction on basis of disability which is the purpose or effect of impairing or nullifying the recognition, enjoyment, or exercise on equal basis with others of all human rights and fundamental freedom in the political, economic, social, cultural, civil, or any other field, and includes all forms of discrimination and denial of reasonable accommodation. So you have to be aware of this, that in this law it is defined as that denial of reasonable accommodation amounts to discrimination of a person with disability, which is a penal offense. So there always will be some kind of arguments about disability inclusive measures. Are they necessary? What should be the objective? Will they have an impact on motivation to work? Who decides them? How to measure environment barriers for persons with mental health issues? Like, for example, we call about somebody who has a locomotor difficulty. So he will have difficulty in moving to the fourth floor. So we say that making ramps or creating some kind of lifts would be a environment modification to help them. But what are that environment modification for persons with disability, especially mental disabilities? What are the bodies and agencies which provide policies and frames programs with regard to this? So I think even as I was a trainee, I was aware of only that disability certificate would be useful for gaining disability pension. Say government will give some kind of pension, and sometimes it may be helpful for some kind of travel. So I was also not aware beyond that. But after working in this field, we thought we should share this information, and also the trainees should be aware that there are many other things which are less used and less aware people are also, which can bring a significant changes in the person with disabilities life, day-to-day life. So as I said, that these are the three common which people may know usually. So as I said that the pension, like disability pension, as I mentioned that I just gave you that three states in the southern south. Say for example, in the Andhra Pradesh state, they would give around rupees 3,000 per month the disability pension, whereas in Telangana that's around 3,016 rupees. In Karnataka, there is a division between 600 for mild to moderate disability and 1,400 for severe disability. Mind that all these will be given only for persons with disability when they belong to below poverty line. So it is not that having a mere disability certificate would guarantee this thing. So person also has to be below the poverty line. And the travel concessions, like especially in buses, I can give you the example of Bangalore and Karnataka. So these will be issued for persons with any disability, and this bus pass will be around 660 rupees per annum. So usually even monthly pass in this Bangalore metro would be around 900, whereas for person with disability it would be around 660 per year. And in all other districts also, similar passes will be issued where that person with disability can use that pass throughout the district. Now this bus concession is irrespective of the BPL status. So if a person has a disability certificate, then they can avail this one. So I'll go on to a few other social welfare measures. Like you also have to understand certain sections of this the new law, that section 31 narrates inclusion is a right in schools till the age of 18. So I think you might be aware of Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan as part of education for all, which says that school education is a right for people till the age of 14 years. However, this law states that when a person is disabled, now till 18 years of age, a school of his choice in the neighborhood or a special school, it is inclusion is his right. And in the higher education, like say when somebody crosses the PUC or +2 category, when they grow into graduation or even higher courses, section 32 of this law narrates that a minimum of 5% reservation with an upper age relaxation of 5 years in all higher education courses, whether it is graduation or post-graduation or PhD, including the medical courses. So you may encounter people who may have this illness related difficulties during their 20s or 25s, and they may have discontinued their graduation, or they have finished but there is a gap. Now if they have this disability certificate, it opens much doors for them that they can get entry into their higher educational courses under this reservation, 5% reservation, because this 5% reservation is not divided into like 1% for locomotor, these things. It's a kind of 5% is in total. So any person perhaps would qualify to that 5% as per the any university or any guidelines, then they can claim that seat. Now, so this is with respect to the higher educational institutions. And one more is that the section 34, that is not less than 4% of reservation across all government jobs based on the total number of posts, not on identified posts. Say for example, if you see that in any state government, or say even I'll just give you an example of Indian Railways. Just take the example of Indian Railways. So in Indian Railways, there are, say, total posts of the possible employees is says around 80,000. I'm just giving a random number. Now, so this law narrates that 4% of that 80,000 jobs must be filled by persons with disability. So there's no exemption. In the previous thing, what was happening is that they used to identify certain jobs, that these are the jobs which persons with disability can do. These are the jobs which certain cannot do. So they were providing reservations in the identified job category only. So for example, in the 88,000 random number which I mentioned in the Indian Railways, they will identify that 30,000 jobs cannot be done by person with disability because of the needs of the job. So only 50,000 jobs can be done. So they used to give reservation only in this 50,000 jobs. But Supreme Court has quashed that, saying that the quantum of reservation should be on the number of total posts, not on the identified posts. So all organizations, whether it is railways or it is banking, whether it is even recently we have seen that one Kendriya Vidyalaya recruitment for about thousands of teacher posts, everywhere this 4% reservation has to be followed. And if some organization does not want to follow this because of reasons, say for example, there is a police department. Now police department, they need to have people who will not have disability because it interferes with the work for which they are getting recruited. So in that way, these organizations has to approach the Ministry of Social Justice for exemption. Otherwise, it is deemed that they have to provide these reservations. So few of the government India programs which can be useful for you to know more and to give information to the is that assistance to disabled persons for purchase of aids and appliances, that is called ADIP scheme. Up to 10,000 or 12,000 per person with disability would be provided. Quantum of assistance is based on the family income of 15,000 per month. So under this ADIP scheme, the locomotor aids, like kind of wheelchairs or any other things might be provided. But what is relevant to us is that persons with intellectual disability, because Secunderabad National Institute of Empowerment of Persons with Intellectual Disability has created certain resources for children and adolescents of intellectual disability. So usually for APL people, they will sell it at a cost, whereas for they provide these resource materials under this ADIP scheme. So for more information, people who want in this regard perhaps can contact the National Institute of Empowerment of Intellectual Disability located at Secunderabad. Earlier this was called as National Institute of Mentally Handicapped, NIMH. So you might have heard of that, NIMH. And 3 other types of kits for children with intellectual sensory disability to be provided under Alimco. So NHFDC loans for self-employment. Many of these schemes would be implemented through the state departments. So one more thing that you can use this social welfare benefit is that you may also get many people who belong to APL, where the family caregiver or the person themselves may be income taxpayers. So one other thing that might be useful is that section 80D, 80U and 80DD. So say under section 80D, the premium paid and medical expenditure, when it is made through cashless, it is exempted when the person has a disability. And section 80U, a person with disability, income tax exemption can be claimed 75,000 and to 1,25,000 based on the percentage of disability. So if a person has severe to profound disability, that is as per the income tax act is that 80% or above disability would be eligible for 1,25,000 exemption, whereas people who have 40 to 79% of disability will have eligibility for exemption to 75,000. And one more is section 80D. So exemption can be given on the expenditure for the medical treatment, training and rehabilitation of a dependent being a person with disability. So section 80D can be used by the family caregiver or parent who cares for this person with disability. It also the same like, so I think section 80U is that for a person with disability, 80DD is a family caregiver on whom the person is dependent. So the like if mother or father or parent of a child with intellectual disability, they are in a government kind of employment, or if they're even in a private employment where they earn money which falls under the income tax range, then this is one thing that can make a big change, especially saving money depending upon the tax bracket where they fall. If they are in the 30% tax paying range, then they can save around 35 40,000 or 45,000 depending upon the severity. So just to give you understanding that this is a form number 10(1)(a) that is used for this kind of exemptions. So any family caregiver can use this one, and the treating physician or the specialist doctor can sign this one, and this can be used for just updating at the income tax when they file the returns. One more thing, I think you might have heard about this one, but I just wanted to give you a little more deeper understanding about this one, is that Ayushman Bharat. So in this Ayushman Bharat, for the first time that we can see that in the category 28, mental disorder packages have been included, and almost all mental health conditions that have been described under the ICD are covered for inpatient admissions. Admission for one with mental retardation could be covered for behavioral issues also. So like as I said, F70. Now there are also pediatric medical care packages like which covers the developmental delays. So that comes under the 16th category. Idea of unknown etiology, global developmental delay, and developmental and behavioral disorders, and all these categories, when they get admitted as inpatient, up to 2,000 rupees per day towards their treatment expenditure will be provided as a cashless. So whoever has Ayushman Bharat, perhaps irrespective of disability certificate is there or not, I think are eligible this. So, and as I mentioned about the disability specific measures which can be useful for government organizations, is that one other thing that is that the employees who have dependent disabled, they are exempted from the routine or rotational transfers. In the past it is 7 disabilities, so we do not have as of now, in my understanding, a recent DOPT order about the 21 disabilities, but however I think it could extend the same, and they are exempted. So you can see that autism, thalassemia, hemophilia also have been included. So if they produce these certificates, they would be exempted from the routine transfers. This similar kind of benefit is available across the even state governments also. It is not that only with the government of India, because state government also issues different circulars and GOs. Somebody who is residing in their state can go through this also. Now one more important benefit would be that there is a insurance scheme for all government employees called Central Government Health Scheme. So this insurance covers for outpatient expenditure and all inpatient kind of benefits. So whenever that employee's children would be eligible only till the age of 25. So once they cross that age 25, the children will not be eligible. However, when if the children are disabled dependent, now the CGHS benefit would extend beyond the 25, and there is no time cutoff after that. So we have seen that in many people where even when the person with disability is 45 years or 50 years and they were unmarried because of the chronic psychosis, and they were dependent on their father who was some ex-employee in the government, they continue to use the CGHS benefit, and they'll get the medicines from CGHS dispensaries. So even they get the prescription from the NIMHANS, that they would take this prescription to the CGHS dispensary to get the medicines. So this can be also quite applicable in your settings also. So if you feel that if you encounter in people who would benefit with this, I think you can share this information, and they have to submit their disability certificate and a request to extend the CGHS benefit beyond 25. then the CGHS and the regional CGHS would issue such order. Now, one more important thing that is that CEA, that is Child Education Allowance. So, for many of the government employees, they would get a child education allowance as part of their salary. So, as part of the 7th PRC, around 2,250 per month for ordinary children would be provided. Whereas, if the employee has a disabled child, so the education allowance has been hiked to 4,500 per month. So, this, I think, can be useful when they want to enroll the child or their dependent in a special school or any other kind of intervention, special intervention they are looking into. Also, if the disabled child if gets admitted into any kind of residential facility, this allowance per month would be hiked to 6,750 for hostel subsidy. Now, one more very important thing that we have seen which has been useful for people is that the family pension transfer. So, to give you a brief overview that now rules have changed, but employees who got into the employment before 2004 are all eligible for pension after their retirement, or what we call it as superannuation. So, what happens normally is that when an employee diseases, dies, the pension would be given to the spouse. Say, for example, Mr. X has died at the age of 70, and the pension would be transferred to the wife, who would be around 65 or whatever it is. Till the lifetime, that wife would receive the pension, and after that, it would be stopped. That is a normal, usual phenomena. But if the son or daughter of a government employee is suffering from a disorder or disability of mind, including mental retardation, rendering them not to earn a livelihood after the age of 25 years, family pension shall be paid to such daughter or son through a guardian as if he is a minor, except in case of physically disabled children. So, this family pension, say for example, in the example I said that Mr. X was receiving a family pension of 30,000. Now he died. So his wife usually would receive half of that amount, that is 15,000, as long as she lives. Now, if this section can be used for that purpose, then the dependent son or daughter who is affected with the mental illness related disability would get the same amount after the demise of the mother till their lifetime. Now, this can be a significant game changer in some people's lives, because if a person is getting a regularly fixed amount of money, some of the family caregivers or some of the extended family members may be willing to provide shelter and protection to them, because many of the people who have difficulties in extending support would be, one of the reason is that financial reasons. Now, if they do not pose any financial burden on the person who cares, then I think many people might be willing to care. So, it should be continued even if the person with disability gets married, as per the orders. So, many of these orders you can download from, if you request us, we can also provide the copies, and you can download from the Department of Pension and under the Ministry of Human Resources. Provisions for government employees with disability. Till now, I was talking only about when disabled dependents. As I said, that employees with disability. So there is no difference between getting a job and becoming a PWD before or after, because some of the queries which we were getting is that, is there any difference? So application for transfer, if somebody wants to go back to the place where they want to work, the kind of nearby home or something, the immediate supervisor cannot stop the application. It has to be forwarded, and any person with disability cannot be terminated from the job if he or she cannot perform because of benchmark disability due to specified conditions. Even if one opts for voluntary retirement, this should be informed that we cannot terminate you, but we can provide you some kind of different placement. And there is an additional, that is special casual leave, 4 days in every calendar year. So there is a fixed number of casual leaves for any employee in their calendar year. And this person with disability, they will have a 4 days extra special casual leave. And assisted devices, suitable furniture or gadgets should be provided by the employer as part of reasonable accommodation, and the employee has not to, there's no need for them to pay anything for that. So to stress that, like, cannot be terminated from job, as I mentioned, that even if there is a kind of armed forces or police department where a person as part of the duty sustains some kind of injuries which renders him permanently disabled with more than 40%, even though he cannot do his no longer that the job of police. Now the department cannot terminate his job. As per the law, the department has to find a place which he can do, whether it is sitting in office or writing documents or these things, but they cannot terminate till the time that he attains his retirement. So some people usually will opt for voluntary voluntary term retirement, because they'll have difficulty in going to the workplace. Even then, that this information should be given to them. And a few more things, like women with disabilities, they shall be paid rupees 3,000 per month as a special allowance for child care. The allowance shall be payable from the time of childbirth till the child is 2 years old. So if you encounter any woman who has a benchmark disability and has delivered a child, and if she is an employee under the government, then in addition to her salary, she is eligible for about 3,000 per month for the first 24 months following the childbirth. And hearing impairment, orthopedically handicapped, visual impairment, spinal deformity, deaf and dumb would be eligible for a double the rates of transport allowance. So usually, as I said, that salary of government employee consists of different parts, like there will be some basic pay, there will be some allowances, these things. So when a person with a disability is a government employee under whether state or central, so they have this provision of getting double the transport allowance which any other employee would ordinarily get. So this is what I had given is as per the 7th PRC recommendations of 2016 for the central government employees. So states may have different things, which I have little information on that regard. Also, there is a mileage allowance for accompanying attendant for PWD employee when they tour as part of their duty. So assume that a person with a disability has to travel, say, 400 or 500 kilometers to attend a conference or something as part of their duty, then the attendant along with him also would be paid allowance. So these are generic, which I said that though the scheme document or the allowance orders, DOPT orders, worded in a such a way that more they are catering for persons with physical disabilities. But in our understanding, these are applicable for any person who carries a benchmark disability, and you can provide this information to them for whom this can be useful. And if their employer is not honoring these orders, because the mental illness as a disability has not mentioned in that DOPT order, then we can suggest that they should approach the State Disability Commissioner, who is the enforcing authority and can look into these issues. So under the National Trust Act, there are some specific social welfare schemes and measures. But these are applicable only for 4 conditions. I think you all are aware that autism, CP, cerebral palsy, mental retardation, and multiple disabilities. So there is a specific procedure for appointing a legal guardian for PWDs, which I'll say that local level committees, usually when somebody requires any kind of guardianship, the normal phenomena is that they have to approach the district court, where district court would look into whether this person would need a guardian, who will be the guardian, because till 18 years of age, the parent would be natural guardian. And once a person crosses 18 years of age, they are independent. But if somebody is above 18 but cannot take decision independently or has difficulty in decision taking, then there is a need for guardian. But district court, one of the trouble is that district court sometimes it may take a very long time to get some kind of guardianship, because we know that all the courts are overburdened with thousands and even some kind of lakhs of pending cases, and this might not be the higher priority for hearing, and the family suffers a lot because the person with disability also has to go for these hearings. So Government of India has brought this National Trust Act, a specific measure for appointing guardians in a decentralized manner, that is called as local level committees. These local level committees are constituted under the district collector, or sometimes it's called in some places as deputy commissioner. So these meetings will be held in once periodically, and they will look into there itself about who has applied and on what basis, and they will look into disability certificate whether it is under the National Trust Act disability or not, and they would issue this permanent guardianship. Because this permanent guardianship or this legal guardianship as per this one is necessary for many people even to open a bank account when they are above 18 years of age, whether it is joint account, this kind of thing. Without that, they will be not eligible for many other benefits. Even say, for example, there is a Niramaya health insurance which we talked, I think, yesterday, that the amount of health expenditure would be transferred to the beneficiary account. Now, beneficiary will have account only if the bank manager is willing to open bank account. Bank manager would say that without a legal guardian, I will not open a bank account. Now, where is to get the legal guardian? If you go to the court, it may take 3 years or 4 years. So to bypass all those things, actually this has come. We observed that this has been useful for many, many families. So just to give you a little overview, that little more schemes which I said, that Niramaya health insurance scheme offers up to 1 lakh coverage per year per beneficiary, that is a person with a disability. This purely on a reimbursement basis. One of the important thing in Niramaya is that so outpatient based expenditure, including the diagnostic tests or these things, can be reimbursed. So as an example, if you encounter a child who has intellectual disability with seizure disorder, and where the neurologic people or the physician or pediatrician feels that levetiracetam can be a better option, or some other like valproate usually will be provided some hospitals, but any drug, even if it is not provided in the government hospital, now the family can buy that medicine and they can claim that money as a reimbursement up to 8,000 per annum. Or if there is any kind of thyroid test or any other test which is not done routinely in the government hospital, they have to pay money elsewhere, they can submit those bills. So if somebody is interested about the Niramaya health insurance, yesterday we had session about that one, and very soon probably we will be updating in the YouTube also. Then you can consider listening to that if you have any other queries, or otherwise you can also look at the National Trust website. One more thing is that under this Disha Early Intervention Center for children with disability either due to autism or intellectual disability, and Vikas is a kind of daycare center for people with more than 10 years of age. Samarth is a kind of scheme which provides respite care. So if the family caregiver is burdened about that they have that caregiver burden, then these are the respite places where they can admit the person with the disability for some time. And also one important scheme under Gharanda is a long stay homes. So people, the scheme is designed in such a way that when there is no family to look after, and people because of disability cannot have independent ability to survive in the community, they can stay in this long stay homes. And some of other is like Sahyogi is that a kind of caregiver training, how caregiver should help the people. So National Trust provides these kind of training sessions. And Gyan Prabha, Barte Kadam, Prerna. So many schemes are there. I think as I mentioned in the previously that, so under section 13 local level committee would be constituted, and under section 14-17 of the National Trust Act certificate will be issued. We have some information that till date around 679 local level committees at a district level have been constituted, and 33,500 persons have been granted legal guardianship under the National Trust. So one thing that you should be aware as trainees is that the Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act, now it converted all legal guardianships into limited guardianships. However, this still local level committees are continuing to function. They are giving these limited guardianship certificates. But sometimes we get queries that whether people with mental illness like kind of schizophrenia, can they get legal guardianship from these local level committees? But in our understanding, as per this National Trust Act, it is not allowed. So under RPWD, no, there is a provision where state governments can also extend this one to them. So just to give you a little overview, because sometimes you also have to provide this information to the family members, where they may come to meet you for whether this specifically for disability certificate or for any kind of health needs when they are adults. The person with disability like intellectual disability may be 40 years, 30 years. There may be elderly parents, or they may be brother who may be the caregiver. So the process for application is simple. That is online application. They have to visit this National Trust website and they have to fill the details. Sorry. So they have to upload all the documents that are relevant, and once entire thing is confirmed, then these details will be forwarded to the local level committee where they are residing, and then they will get a intimation about when this local level committee meeting will happen. So people whoever have applied for this guardianship has to go on that day with all the relevant documents. So there will be a local level committee which consists of different members as per the National Trust Act guidelines. They will verify the documents, they will talk to the person, and they will assess in what basis and for what reason somebody has applied for guardianship, and they will either grant or reject based upon the committee's decision, local level committee's decision. So I think just I had covered this also, that Niramaya health insurance, that OPD expenditure, also that they have a coverage up to 2,500 per year for even dental checkup and preventive dentistry, and also even alternative medicine. Some people who may go for these different things. One more thing I found, it was even learning for me, is that ongoing therapies for persons with disability due to National Trust Act is allowed for 10,000 per annum. So especially I have seen that many family caregivers with children with intellectual disability or children with autism, when they avail even speech therapy kind of sessions for the children who are 6 years, 8 years, 9 years, so they can submit these speech therapy bills, because you may not get in every government hospital, and that would be reimbursed till 10,000. So many people have availed that service, and they got the reimbursement. So if somebody has a Niramaya health insurance, as of now, we have information that around 95,000 policy holders are there, and in the last 2017, the claims are around 15,000, and the government of India has spent around 7.3 crores. But you can see that it is expected that around 1.5 million are in across India are having intellectual disability, whereas only less than 1 lakh people have Niramaya. So very poor awareness, less penetration, and once they get this card, I think most of the details will be on the back of the card. So they have to submit the bills to a third party administrator, that is called Raksha, for claim settlements. Just one more thing, that because you may also encounter many people who are in the education age group, say somebody who may be less than 30, or even somebody 25. So one of the things that might help for many people is that, though this is not a disability specific benefit, I thought I can just give you a little overview. That is National Institute of Open School System, where people can acquire the 10th standard qualification and 11th and 12th standard qualifications, which are equivalent to any other board certifications. And they have the, though this is intended for people who have dropped from the mainstream education, usually like somebody, whatever the reason. But we have seen that NIOS has been much useful for people with mental health related disabilities, because for people with mental disabilities, it can be quite challenging to attend the classes on a regular sessions and to give the exams in a regular manner. Now in NIOS, one of the advantages is that they can give the exams whenever that they want, and they can choose the subjects among a range of subjects. So there will be a range of, for example, 12 to 14 subjects. They can pick the subjects that these are the subjects that I am going to read. Now in traditional kind of school or CBSE or state syllabus, you will not have that kind of flexibility. You will have to write those whether you like it or not, and you have to pass to get a certificate. So in NIOS, it's much flexible, and we have met many people who have intellectual disability, who otherwise would have never finished their 10th standard in open school system, sorry, in regular school system, have finished their 10th standard in their NIOS. And also NIOS offers some vocational courses also. So that also we felt that it has been useful. So as I said, that there will be 9 examinations in a span of 5 years, twice in a year, and person can choose subjects from the list available. And also if somebody has previously studied in a school and they want to go for open school system, credit up to 2 subjects. That means, I'll give an example. So there is a person who has finished his 10th standard, means he gave his 10th standard exam. He passed in 3 subjects. Now he feels that this open regular school system is very tough. He wants to move to NIOS. Now NIOS takes 2 subjects of what he has passed. So he has to clear the rest of the subjects only. And now there's no upper age limit. So even if you find anybody 40 years, 50 years, sometimes we feel that the people also wants to have some kind of educational qualification, because it's a kind of it brings some kind of social identity for them. We have seen that. So they say that I just need to have a degree, that's all. It's not for an employment. So in all those cases, this open kind of thing can significantly helpful. So being aware of this information, I think as a trainee, you can provide this information for the patients who approach you or the families who approach you. One more thing is that this is even in the regular school or NIOS. That is, if a person has a disability, there is a provision that instead of the person with disability, other person can write the exam. That is what we call scribe or reader. So there is a specific format for application where in advance to the exam center, the person with disability has to apply that this is the reason and this is the disability that I have, and I need a scribe. Usually that exam center itself has to provide scribe. If that is not available, then they would request the person with disability to bring their own scribe. So usually as per the rules, the scribe qualification should be lesser than the persons with disability what exam he is giving. So the disability certifying authority or any other doctor also has to give a medical certificate to take this kind of exams. That in my opinion, he would require scribe for this reason, like whether it is dyslexia, dysgraphia, slow learner, intellectual disability, autistic. So this clinical information has to be given, and doctor has to opine that. I feel that a scribe would be useful. So we have seen many people where by using the scribe, they cleared the exams and they got the qualifications. So this is also the same, that continuation of that annexure. So NIOS is a kind of CBSE curriculum offered under the Ministry of MHRD, Human Resource Development, and under the Government of India. But I also came to know that certain states are offering their own state open schools So this is an example that Andhra Pradesh is offering this kind of open school exams, which is similar to NIOS. One of the trouble with NIOS is that NIOS will not offer it in the regional languages. So for somebody, some say from rural Karnataka, now it might be very difficult for him to have this CBSE curriculum, even though it is NIOS. So there is also a Karnataka open school system where if the languages or the subjects which he chooses, if they can read in the vernacular language, now that will be a significant advantage for them to acquire that qualification. So one more thing that you also should be aware of is that there is a rule that if there is a person with disability, compensatory time of 20 minutes for each 1 hour exam should be provided. So even if it is a competitive exam, say for example there is a BSRB recruitment exam or say railway recruitment exam, whatever it is. Now the time itself is 1 hour 30 minutes. Now as per these guidelines, any person with disability will get 20 minutes for each 1 hour exam extra. So if other person gets 1.5 hour the exam, now this person is entitled for 2 hours because 30 minutes extra. The exam, if itself is a 3 hour exam, then 3 multiplied by 20, that is 4 hours. The person would be eligible for 4 hours time. So few other measures which less commonly availed and less commonly aware is that one thing called a marriage incentive of 1 lakh. So when a person with a disability marries one without disability, there is an incentive of marriage for 1 lakh rupees. This would be usually given or it would be provided by the disability department at a district level, and this would be given as a kind of fixed deposit on the name of the spouse. So state policies might differ. I think one can check from their respective state disability department. And also to provide livelihood opportunities, various subsidies would be provided. Section 19 for PWDs states skill training exclusive for persons with disabilities with active links to the market. Government has to perhaps create such kind of things. They are bound to. So there is one thing that you may, if you have interest, can go through is that earlier what called SIBDA, Scheme for Inclusion of Persons with Disability, and now it is reconverted or redesigned as Skill Council SCPWD. So one more important thing that many people are not much aware is that special employment exchange for persons with disability. Every state government is supposed to create one special employment exchange at every district headquarter level, where any person carrying this benchmark disability certificate, irrespective of the cause, whether it is mental illness, whether it is intellectual disability or autism, are entitled to register at special employment exchange. So why should one register with this if they want a job? So one important thing that in the recent new parliament act passed by the parliament is that as per the section 2H, unemployment allowance to persons with disabilities who have been registered with special employment exchange for more than 2 years and who could not be placed in any gainful occupation. So often I think you may or we also come across many people who in the age of 40 or 45 or 30, they would say that I want a job, because we work in the rehabilitation sector. So once the symptoms are controlled or symptoms are reasonably better, we will get a referral. And one of the commonly expressed need is that we want a job to earn money. So one thing that we try to educate them is that have you applied for any kind of employment exchange or not? Because traditionally, usually most of us know that applying in a government employment exchange would not give any kind of guarantee about the job. So people, I think, are not much looking into that kind of thing. But because of this law, I would encourage all of you to consider, encourage your service users that if job is a felt need for them and if they have a benchmark disability certificate, the first thing that they should do is that register themselves to the nearest special employment exchange with the qualifications whatever if they have. And even if they do not have any qualification at all, they can be registered as illiterate category. So once they are registered, in a period of 2 years, if they do not get any kind of employment, they are eligible for unemployment allowance as per the law. So government cannot deny that. And also compulsory inclusion, compulsory representation, education, livelihood, earning, poverty elevation, and other measures. So I think I just had touched this earlier also, that 5% reservation across all educational courses, whether it is higher or whatever it is, and not less than 4% reservation of jobs. So in this reservation of jobs, there is one thing that you need to be aware of, is that it is divided across the 4 categories. That is 1% for locomotor disability, 1% for who have visual impairment, 1% for who have hearing impairment, and 1% for who have autistic spectrum disorder or intellectual disability or specific learning disability or disability due to mental illness and multiple disabilities. So all these 5 are clustered here, covering 1%. So we have seen, I was not able to come across any Government of India notifications, but in the last 2 years we have seen Government of Karnataka notifications where they have given this 1% reservation jobs in a notification that this post is reserved for this category. So I even have some people who got jobs, permanent government jobs under this category. So conveying this information to people who have who would be eligible, I think makes a significant difference in their lives if they can use that. One more is that section 37. So minimum of 5% reservation in allotment of agricultural land and housing in all relevant schemes and development programs with appropriate priority to women. So the people may be from urban or rural background, but if they do have a disability certificate due to mental illness, now they would be eligible for the reservation in any kind of agricultural land allotments or any kind of housing land allotments or any kind of housing allotment itself. And law narrates that land on concessional rate should be provided for the promoting housing, shelter, setting up occupation, business, enterprise, or recreation centers and production centers. So I don't know how many of you have heard about this MG Narega scheme, that is Mahatma Gandhi rural employment scheme. So otherwise simply called as sometime as 100 days employment scheme. So they are entitled to a minimum of 100 days employment if they are registered under this. Now, so as of now, we are not sure that whether this 5% applicable here also, but we got positive signals from the MG Narega administrators that they are willing to consider if somebody with a disability certificate approaches them. So if somebody is from a rural background, I think you can give this information. They can go back to their respective panchayat and they can apply, and they are entitled to this 100 days employment where they would get that remuneration for that. So I think as I mentioned that high support needs, initially I gave you a brief overview that what if somebody is declared as person with high support. So as per the new law, which says that transport facilities for children with high support needs to attend school should be provided by the state authorities. And also there is one mention called caregiver allowance for those caring for persons with high support needs. So the quantum or the procedural guidelines have not been laid down, but if somebody is interested about this high support needs, Government of India has issued a notification about assessment of high support needs. They can download it from the Ministry of Social Justice website, and the tool can be used. But however, it has to be given by the board. So as I said that this is an online site where anybody who wishes job, as I said, the SCPWD can update their data. The intention of the government is that this is a portal where employers who wishes to employ persons with disabilities will also register. People who are with disabilities who want employment will be also registered. And this agency tries to meet or help them in meeting, so that the people who seek employment can meet the right employer who can give some kind of employment. It includes private thing, it's not that a government thing. So one more thing that you can be more aware of is that Rehabilitation Council of India, which determines certain courses and prescribed qualifications who can help or who can teach or who can train persons with disabilities. So they have even resources. As I said, that SCPWD, Skill Council for Persons with Disability, and at national level, this is the Department of Empowerment of Persons with Disabilities, is the enforcing authority. I think I had given you information about this also, this National Trust Act. So thank you, and if you have any questions, I will take a few questions. I thought, sorry, a little bit late. I rushed through. If you think that I have rushed through, and if you have difficulty in any thing which we have narrated now, you can please let us know if you have any query or question.
Hello, sir. I think I missed it. What is the ceiling for Niramaya scheme, sir? Is it 70,000 or 1 lakh per year?
Ceiling in terms of reimbursement, you are asking, or ceiling in terms of eligibility?
In terms of reimbursement per year.
Overall, cumulatively 1 lakh, but there are sub-limits. For example, 70,000 is for hospitalization expenditure.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, understood. Thank you.
Okay.
Sir, can I ask one more question, sir?
Yeah, please.
Sir, you told about the tax exemption, sir. Is it like the tax exemption they say is 1.5 lakh, sir? Is it over and above that limit or under that?
No, I think you might be aware how this income tax slab system works.
Yes, sir.
That once somebody comes in the bracket of tax system, then only they will pay.
Yes, sir.
So assume that, I'm just giving an example, till 5 lakhs there is no tax.
Yes, sir.
And they have a person who is disabled dependent.
Yes, sir.
Now this will take to 6.25.
Yes, sir.
So he has to pay to the amount tax only above the 6.25.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Sir, this is Balaji, sir. Good evening, sir.
Yeah, please.
Sir, if a postgraduate or graduate having his studies, sir, have developed the mental disorder, does he eligible for what all the exemptions for writing exams or scribe or some etc. to complete his due course, sir?
It's not the mere development of mental illness. It is whether the person is in possession of a valid benchmark disability certificate or not is the primary criteria.
Okay.
So even if they have an illness, if there is no certification that they have a disability due to illness that is 40% or above, then they would not be eligible. The second thing is that if they do have a valid benchmark disability certificate, and most of these are applicable, and if somebody is in any way is not honoring that kind of guidelines issued by Government of India or respective state government, it is the State Disability Commissioner who should enforce that.
Okay. My main doubt is that even during the course, of education, if you certify that person, the concerned person, will he be eligible for completion, sir?
Yes, absolutely. Why not? There should be no discrimination. Just because somebody develops disability, he has right to complete. And also, when a person becomes disabled with a valid certificate, extra supports have to be provided. So that is what I initially given you in the definition of reasonable accommodation. Now, reasonable accommodation does not mean that it applies only in a workplace. Now, reasonable accommodation should apply everywhere, including in the school, that is even in the elementary school or even in the high school. So somebody who does not provide reasonable accommodation, they are violating the law.
Okay,
It amounts to discrimination.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. You can also contact us if you have any doubts in this regard. That I work in the rehabilitation, so nimhansrehab@gmail.com is our unit ID, where you can send any kind of queries in this regard. If you want any kind of specific circulars or government orders about the presentation that I have given, because we have seen that even sometimes some senior employers themselves are not aware of this family pension transfer. So when we send the parent that you can transfer your pension to your son, you go and approach your employer, they say we don't know that. So we send them along with the circulars and the proper documents. Then it has been useful. So we can share all those things, but anyway, they are freely available also. Right, then thank you everyone.